If you're a young man who struggles with dating, you've probably heard a few of these phrases before, likely from one of these content creators. Don't worry about it, you're still young and yet to reach your peak. It's well known most men are in their prime either at or after 30. You'll have your advantage in dating when the time comes, so don't be afraid to put it off till then. After all, it is women who age like milk, and men who age like fine wine. On first listen, hearing any of these phrases might sound uplifting and hopeful for struggling men. But unfortunately, in this world, hope does not mean the same as truth. Which is why, in this video, I'm going to be uncovering all of the answers surrounding the legitimacy of this idea that men age like fine wine, showing where there are both inaccuracies as well as elements of truth to the notion. Anyway, without further ado, let's get this started, and I'll begin with a simple concept of supply and demand. For those who don't know, perhaps the main talking points from the fine wine advocates is they say that the men over 30 far outcompete the men in their 20s in terms of wealth, status, income, and pretty much everything else that is encompassed in having a superior lifestyle. They then go on to say that this gives men in their 30s a sizable advantage in dating, as lots of women will want to get their hands on and be a part of this lifestyle. Now, while I have no disagreement with this first point, as the data shows it is accurate that over 35s do have a lot more resources at their disposal. However, I do have an issue with this second point, and it comes down to simple supply and demand. Let me explain. So here is our supply and demand chart, and since we're looking at the impact that a man's lifestyle has in the dating market, for the x-axis we will have the quantity or number of guys that can afford a great lifestyle. Then as for the y-axis, we will have how valuable this lifestyle is. In other words, how much of an advantage it will give a man in the dating market over his competition. And if we look at how things have changed over the course of the last 50 years, I will show you that the value a man's lifestyle brings to his dating life has decreased on two fronts, both the supply side and the demand side. And it all comes down to this simple fact. In almost all parts of the developed world, but in this example I'm using the US, GDP per capita has almost tripled in the last 50 years. Meaning, more people have more money than ever before, for both men and women. Now, as I said, this has brought about two changes to the dating market. First, in terms of supply. The fact there are now more men with bigger incomes means the supply of guys with a great lifestyle has increased. 60 years ago, if you were the one guy with the car, you'd be getting noticed and turning heads. But nowadays, everyone has one. 40 years ago, if you were the one guy with a mobile phone, you were the boss. But again, nowadays, everyone has one. So it's clear to see the effect this change will have on the chart is the supply of guys with a superior lifestyle shifts to the right. And as we all know, an increase in supply of anything decreases the value of that thing. It's now less rare, therefore less valuable. The second reason why a lifestyle means less is demand related, i.e. how many women are searching for guys with a great lifestyle so they can get a piece of it. And again, on this front, the demand has decreased, which has led to a further reduction in the value of a man's lifestyle in the dating market. This is because since earnings for women have also increased in the last 50 years, their demand for men as providers has dropped significantly. Before, a woman would place great emphasis on finding a man with resources and see him as higher value, as he'd be able to provide for a family and maintain the household. Two things that previously would have been very difficult for a woman to pull off on her own. But of course, nowadays, this is no longer as necessary because a woman will likely have the means of taking care of these things herself, through either her own career, or by relying on the government/child support. This leads me to my first point. Over the course of the last 50 years, the selection of men based on the lifestyle and resources they can provide has fundamentally shifted from a matter of necessity to a mere desirable extra. Now, I'm not saying a great lifestyle won't bring any benefit to your dating life, but it's likely a woman will have other priorities in mind when looking for a suitable partner, such as looks, which I believe is the most important factor in today's dating market. Because if we bring back the supply and demand chart, this time swapping in the number of attractive guys on the x-axis and the importance of looks on the y-axis, the fact that there are now more men than ever who are slobs and testosterone levels are at an all-time low has led to a reduction in supply of attractive men. It's a matter of fact, this study, again from the US, found testosterone levels among men are dropping by 1% per year. Anyway, this highlights a decrease in supply. As for the demand side, since the introduction of social media apps such as Instagram and TikTok, there has never been a greater emphasis that women will place on looks, as they will want to make sure their partner looks great online. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Instagram won't show how great a boyfriend's personality is, but it will show how attractive he is, how tall he is, how lean he is, how big his muscles are. In 2022, image is everything, meaning the demand for men with good looks has increased and therefore also its importance has too. Now, up until this point in the video, there's been a lot of theory and conceptual charts being shown. But I'm sure a lot of you want to see some actual data supporting my arguments. Well, look no further. The world map you see on your screen now shows the average age gap between married couples by country. And as we can see, in the developed nations, the United States, Canada, the majority of Europe, the age gaps are small, approximately 2 years between man and woman. Meanwhile, in poorer nations, the age gap is much larger, at approximately 10 years. Now, there's a very obvious reason for this, and it comes down to what I've been talking about all along. If we compare what your average man in his 30s brings to the table versus what your average man in his 20s brings, you'd expect the man in his 30s to be faring a lot better in terms of wealth, income, and status. On the other hand, the man in his 20s may not have these things, but he makes up for it with looks and youth. Anyway, the point is, in rich countries, women aren't so concerned with a man's wealth, so therefore they are more likely to date men closer to their own age. Meanwhile, in poorer nations, a woman's priority is securing a man with resources. And the best option in order to achieve this is by dating up half a generation to the men in their 30s. This is the essence of why I disagree with the notion of men age like fine wine. It's simply an outdated concept. And any content creator who is still saying wealth and lifestyle is king just isn't keeping up with the times. No wonder the majority of red pill content creators are in their 40s and 50s. None of them have any modern day dating experience. What they promote may have been relevant 30 years ago, but today we are living in a completely different landscape. The dating market is fundamentally different, and as long as online dating is around, nothing besides a miracle will be able to change that. Another point I want to speak upon is a couple weeks ago I watched this video from the content creator First Man, whose entire channel is built on the idea that lifestyle leads to attraction. And in this video he said most women, especially those who are young, beautiful and in their prime, don't want to be stuck in an office all day when it's cold and miserable. They'd much rather be on a sunny beach relaxing in Barbados. Now, this might be very true. However, what I don't see is how this could ever be used as a good bargaining tool to attract women in order to date them. In fact, I actually think First Man and several other content creators who say the same thing are being a little sly when they talk about using lifestyle to attract women. Because it goes without saying, most people agree that leading with your wallet is bad, and 9 times out of 10 will only attract gold diggers. Both black pillars and red pillars agree with this. However, when Chris talks about providing a lifestyle, he frames it in a way that is safe and can attract women who are genuine and aren't gold diggers. But I think this doesn't add up. Because, for example, if you as a man have an Instagram or Tinder account where your entire profile is showing off the fact you go on lavishing holidays, wear designer clothes, expensive watches, and drive fast cars, I still can't help but think this screams gold digger magnet to me. A lot of these content creators place these things under the umbrella of lifestyle, but at heart they're just beta buxing in disguise. I've shown this TikTok in a previous video, but it sums up what I'm saying perfectly.
I have one thing to say. You better work.
As you saw by that TikTok, this man is providing a lifestyle, but at his core he is just a glorified beta bucks. To reinforce my point, here is what I believe is the ordering of the most authentic factors of love and affection, i.e. what are the most genuine forms of attraction. So at the top we have personality and looks, this is then followed by status, then lifestyle, and then money is at the bottom. Now if I'm a guy who's looking for a relationship, I'd much prefer a girl who genuinely finds me physically attractive and admires my personality as well. In contrast, if I was in a relationship with a woman, mostly because I'm providing her a lifestyle, then I don't think I'd ever be able to rid that feeling in the pit of my stomach that I'm simply being used. And I'd also know deep down, if I ever lost this lifestyle, she'd be gone without hesitation. Anyway, the bottom line is, when guys use the argument of using lifestyle to attract women, I think it's exceptionally difficult, if not impossible, to convey value, whilst at the same time not stepping into the territory of presenting yourself as a hotel open for gold diggers. Another point I want to cover is I often see a lot of red pill guys cite this chart. It tracks the ages of all of Leonardo DiCaprio's previous partners. As you can see, what he's been able to do for the last 20 years is date lots of attractive young girls, then as soon as any one of them hits 25, he breaks up with her and finds a new one. He's been able to rinse and repeat this despite being occupied with his acting career. And in every case, he somehow manages to find another one, who's equally as beautiful in no more than a couple months. Anyway, the point is, I've seen a number of red pill guys use this to show that 1, women age like milk, and 2, men age like fine wine. But I believe it only brings truth to this first one. As for men aging like wine, it doesn't show this at all. The truth is, unless you're some crazy outlier male, a top 1% guy, it's going to be very unlikely you'll be able to date down half a generation. The only thing this data shows is how easy it is for the top 1% of men to find and replace relationships, period. When people use someone like Leonardo DiCaprio to support their arguments, or any other high-status celebrity for that matter, I think it's incredibly disingenuous because this is literally talking about the top 1% of looks, wealth, and status. It's not at all applicable to the wider population or the majority of their audience members. In fact, when you look at the real data for average men, you see next to nobody dating out of their age range by more than 10 years. I found First Man to be especially guilty of this. A common way he goes about his videos is that he often looks at the guys only at the very top, the top 1%. He then uses them as an example to prove his point, and implies what they've done is something that everyone can achieve. If these guys can do it, then so can everybody. It's a matter of fact, on his channel he has an ongoing series called Male Advantage Journeys, which is exactly what I'm trying to describe as he analyses these celebrities who are at the very top of their game and shows the steps that they've taken to reach their level. Now, this next point may be an exaggeration, and I'm not saying Chris has explicitly said this, but the impression I get from these content creators is it's easy to sit back and say, just reach the top 1% bro, with enough time and graft anyone can reach the top. But come on, it's literally called the top 1% for a reason, meaning 99% of guys won't make it. I think content creators like First Man are being blinded by survivorship bias, which is the logical error of concentrating only on the people or things that made it past some selection process and overlooking those that did not, typically because of their lack of visibility. In other words, for every one Drake that became a superstar, there were another 99 others that made it nowhere. This is why when you watch my videos, you're much more likely to see me use data with average or median figures, because these are much more representative, and in fact, when you plot these averages on a curve, you'll find a lot of them resembling something similar to a bell curve shape, where the overwhelming number of data points will be in very close proximity to the median or middle value. Therefore, most of my audience will be able to easily relate to the points I'm making because they are being based on the average guy. In fact, bringing this back to the original topic, when you look at the data for age preferences among average men in the dating market, it all points to the idea that men don't age like fine wine. The chart you see on your screen now shows the ages which men and women find the most attractive given their own age. And the data shows men of all ages, almost unsurprisingly, find the youngest women between 20 and 24 the most attractive. Meanwhile, for women, they prefer to date up by 1 to 2 years for the most part. This only flips past the age of 30, where women start wanting to date down by a year or two. And what's interesting is when you link this data to the average age of marriages, you see the difference aligns with women's preferences, not men's. So ideally, most guys over 30 would want to date down by a decade for the most attractive women. But instead, they're having to settle for women around their own age, which is what women want. This shows, quite simply, when it comes to age preferences, women are the ones with the upper hand and most average men have next to no input for the age ranges they want to date. It's like that old phrase, beggars cannot be choosers. And in today's dating market, the bottom 90% of men are beggars and 100% of women are choosers. Now, I say 90% for men because, of course, a small minority of men have options and are choosers. When it comes to the male population, you are going to get outliers such as Leonardo DiCaprio, who have enough value to be as flexible as they want. But the reality is, most guys don't have anywhere close to this amount of value and therefore have no control over their dating life. Now, to close off the video, I know I've been bashing Chris a fair amount, but I've mainly been focusing on the criticisms, and this was only possible because I watch a lot of his content anyway. I probably agree with around 50% of the ideas he speaks about in his videos, and I actually have a lot of respect for him. I think what he's managed to do with his business and the way he's scaled it up is phenomenal. In fact, I actually bought his supplements a couple weeks ago and have got for about half the bottle. I'm not sponsored by him, I just thought that even if it leads to a 1% improvement in productivity, it will be worth the money to buy it. So overall, I'd say I've definitely learned some things from him, but I think I clash with him the most on the fine wine idea he stands so strongly about. Anyway, that's it for the video. If you enjoyed, make sure you press the like button and leave any thoughts you have in the comments below, as it helps the YouTube algorithm.